When we think about what makes a truly great leader, our minds often jump to things like vision or strategy, right? But today, we're going to talk about something deeper, something that really separates the good from the great. It's that challenging inner work of self-mastery. So let's dive right in.
And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? As a leader, every single interaction, especially when things get tense, is a test. How you handle your own emotions, it can literally build up trust or just tear it all down in a single moment. The stakes, they couldn't be higher.
So how in the world do we navigate those high-stakes moments? Well, there's a tool for it, and it's called emotional intelligence, or EI for short. But don't think of it like book smarts. It's more like emotional wisdom. It's about being aware of what's happening inside you and around you, and then having the skill to handle it all wisely.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start with what it even means to be an emotionally wise leader. Then we'll dig into the key pillars: knowing yourself, managing your emotions, understanding others, and building relationships. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at your own personal path to emotional growth.
So let's start with the foundation. Here's the thing. You can have all the talent or spiritual authority in the world, but without emotional maturity, it can actually be, pretty destructive. It's the fast track to broken relationships and hurting the very people you're trying to lead. Real lasting influence has to be built on a rock-solid foundation of emotional stability. So the big question is, how do we build that stability? Well, this framework gives us a fantastic guide with 5 pillars. Think of it like this. The journey always starts inside, with self-awareness and self-control. Then, that whole process is fueled by your inner motivation. And once you've got a handle on the internal stuff, you turn your focus outward, connecting with people through empathy and strengthening those connections with your social skills.
All right, pillar 1. It all, and I mean all, starts with self-awareness. Why? It's simple, really. You can't fix what you don't even know is broken. You can't change something if you haven't identified it in yourself first. This is ground zero for any kind of real emotional growth.
And look, this is not some new age idea. This hunger for self-knowledge is ancient. This verse right here, it's just this raw, honest prayer to really understand our own hearts, right? To see what makes us tick, to uncover our blind spots, and to really get a grip on what's driving us.
Okay, so this is where the rubber really meets the road. A self-aware leader knows what pushes their buttons, what makes them angry or insecure. They see that clear line connecting a feeling they're having and the decision they're about to make. And maybe most importantly, they know when to just pause, to take a breath before they lash out.
You want a perfect example of this kind of transformation? Just look at Peter. He starts out as this super passionate but totally impulsive guy. He literally chops off a dude's ear. But over time, through some pretty major failures and a lot of grace, he becomes this steady, self-aware, emotionally balanced rock for the early church. It's an incredible journey from pure impulse to true intention.
Okay, so once you know yourself, what's next? Well, you have to manage yourself. And that brings us to pillar 2, self-control. Now, this isn't about stuffing your emotions down and pretending they don't exist. Not at all. It's about having the strength to choose a thoughtful response instead of just flying off the handle with a knee-jerk reaction.
And ancient wisdom makes this really sharp distinction. It's easy to just vent your anger, right? It might feel good for a second, but it's often super destructive. Real strength, real wisdom, that's found in holding back. It's in creating just a little bit of space between that feeling and your action. That space is where a wise response is born.
Yeah, this chart lays it out so clearly. A reaction, that's pure impulse. It's letting your emotions call all the shots. But a response, that's intentional. That's you, guided by your wisdom and your values, making a choice. It's the fundamental difference between being a slave to how you feel and being the master of it.
Just think about David. He's literally hiding in a cave from King Saul, who's trying to kill him. And he gets the perfect chance to take his revenge. And he doesn't do it. His guys are like, "What are you doing? This is our chance." But David held back. He saw the bigger picture. That wasn't weakness, folks. That was some next-level emotional strength.
So let's be honest. This work of self-awareness and self-control, it's hard. So what keeps you going? What's the fuel for the fire? That's where motivation comes in. A leader with high EI isn't driven by their feelings, which change all the time. They're driven by a deep conviction, a purpose. Just think of Nehemiah rebuilding that wall with enemies on all sides. It wasn't a good feeling that kept him going, it was his conviction.
Okay, so now we're going to make a really important pivot. We've been looking inward,
at ourselves. Now it's time to turn our focus outward to other people. And that brings us to our next pillar, empathy. This is all about understanding and even sharing the feelings of someone else. This is where leadership becomes deeply relational.
In this verse, it's probably the best definition of empathy you'll ever find. See, it's not just feeling bad for someone when they're having a tough time. It's more than that. It's about jumping into their world with them, being genuinely excited about their wins, and sitting with them in their pain.
So what does this actually look like day to day? Well, empathetic leaders, they really listen. They don't just wait for their turn to talk. And because their concern is real, they build this incredible sense of loyalty. They get that famous saying, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Connection has to come first.
And here's just a powerful, powerful example of this. When Jesus gets to Lazarus' tomb, think about this. He knows the end of the story. He knows he's about to perform a miracle. But he sees the raw grief of Lazarus' sisters, and he just weeps. He chose to feel their pain in that moment, even knowing it was temporary. That, right there, is empathy.
All right, let's bring it all home with our final pillar, which is really where everything we've talked about comes together. Pillar 5 is social skill. This is where you take your self-awareness, your self-control, and your empathy, and you combine them to actually build and manage great relationships.
And this verse absolutely nails the communication piece of it. It's not just about being nice, and it's definitely not just about being right. It's about that perfect blend of grace, that warmth and kindness, and salt, that truth and substance. You need both. It's about being both kind and constructive.
So a leader who's got this down, they're a unifier. They can say the hard thing that needs to be said, but they do it in a way that doesn't blow everything up. And just as important, they can take criticism without getting all defensive. Why? Because they get it. They know that real leadership isn't about their title. It's all about the relationships they've built.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why. Now for the most important part, the how. Because this isn't just some abstract theory. Emotional intelligence is a skill, and like any skill, you can get better at it with practice.
So here are 5 really practical things you can start doing. 1. Spend some quiet time in reflection each day. 2. Practice hitting that pause button between the trigger and your reaction. 3. Be brave enough to ask a few trusted people for honest feedback. 4. Learn to forgive quickly. Don't let stuff fester. And 5. When you listen, make it your goal to truly understand, not just to reply.
And we'll leave you with this thought. At the end of the day, the biggest and most important project you'll ever lead is you. Real leadership strength isn't measured by how much control you have over others, but by how much control you have over yourself. So my question for you is, what's just one small step you can take today to get a little better at mastering the person in the mirror?